we will now go towards more focused on, to some degree, on today and what is going through the minds of these youngsters who are sitting today. And one thing I told them on the induction day is, you're going to graduate, you're going to pass out in 2022, and this is 2020. So it's the time you get out and start your professional life. It'll be 2 years from now, and we talk how long COVID will last, September, November, January, like that. So there is some time in it. But Arjun, I want you to comment and tell these youngsters, to some degree, whatever input you have or value you have on this, is how does one, I'll put two questions together so that you can answer them together. How does one prepare for an eventuality like this? And how does one fight? How does one be relevant? And how does one be aggressive? And how does one prepare himself or herself as they see a very open future in front of them? Why even their seniors don't know the future. So I think there is a problem in seniors telling them this is the direction you should go or that is the direction you should go. So it's a very unique kind of a situation. They can only take wisdom, and they can only go by the wisdom we can give them. So I would like you to make some comments on this for them, purely for the business school students, mainly for them, and so that they can keep this in mind and they can be serious. Because I keep telling the business school students that MBA is a 2-year internship program. It is not a postgraduate program. So you intern here, we call it students and studies and all that, but you're preparing yourself in these 2 years to go for the future and your life and your career. So some thoughts on this.
So, first thing I want to tell everyone, and fortunately for us in the IT industry, it's been true that learning is a lifelong experience. For us, technology forces us to keep learning all the time. I mean, the technology we started off with, the technologies that are there today, the technologies that are likely to be there tomorrow are going to be very different. And so in IT, unfortunately, you have to keep learning. Otherwise, your history. What has happened is, what is happening today is that in whatever industry you are, this is applicable. So, if you think by doing a 2-year program, I'm now knowledgeable, I know what's going on, please change your thinking. You have to keep learning. Now, whether the learning is in your management, whether the learning is in the industry you go into or whatever, you have to keep learning, number one. Number two, better get used to working with data. With IoT and stuff like that coming up, the amount of data that's going to be available for people to take decisions is going to go up multifold. And the data is not just going to be numbers or text, it's going to be voice, it's going to be video. And so any business you're in, probably the sexiest job today you can get is of a data scientist. And a data scientist is someone who understands the data, knows a fair amount of math, and understands the industry. So you can't be one or the other, right? But the third thing that you've got to look at, and which is what we are in today, is this whole COVID situation. Now, it's anyone's guess when it will go away. But I think most people are very comfortable that in 2 years it will definitely not be there the way it is today. Hopefully it will be gone by the middle of next year. But again, who knows? But the key to remember is that it's going to change the way we look at a lot of things. I mean, today we are doing this online kind of talk. Now think of education. If we have to do online education for higher education for a year, I'll just give that as an example. Think of what's going to happen, right? Let's start with the first point. Once we know that why would I pay that kind of money to send a person to live on campus and blah, 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 why would I not do it all online? And if I'm doing it online, what stops a IIT or an MIT or a Harvard from having 2 million students online? Then why would small universities, how are they going to survive? Right? Third thing, look at it. If content has to be digitally done, why would I depend on expensive American professors when I can get much cheaper people in India or countries like India to do it? So just think of what's going to happen to the higher education industry as an industry as this pandemic changes the way people think. And it's going to happen to every industry. Right? I just try to give you an example that you all might be directly familiar with. But whatever your industry, it's going to change. So in your mind, you've got to think of which industries are going to have to take advantage, can take advantage of this, which industries are going to have to adapt, healthcare being a good example, where telemedicine, online healthcare is going to suddenly become much more important. From under 10%, it's going to go to 40, 50, maybe more percent of people who will do it. How is it going to impact doctors, hospitals, the whole system? And then there are the industries like public transport, industries like hotels, where the impact is going to be negative. People are going to be not wanting to be in a crowd even after this thing goes away, right? So just think of what, quote unquote, they call the new normal is going to be. And it's going to be a new normal. And so I think you've got to look at, and you can read, there's a lot of material coming out, it's changing every day, but it's worth reading to see which industries are going to go in which direction. Now you have, the opportunity for you is phenomenal. Number one, if you want to go into an industry, you can choose the industries that you think are going to be winners. You decide you want to play a more, how should I put it, evolving role. You want to influence change, go into industries that are going to be struggling to change. It's exactly what happened to books when Amazon and all came out, what happened to travel or airlines when internet came out. Just see how the whole thing changed. So, the opportunity is phenomenal for you today when you look at graduating a year or 2 years later, because you can decide what you want to do, how aggressive an industry you want to go, how secure an industry you want to go. Even the government, for example, which is considered a very secure job, is going into e-governance in a very big way. In fact, I think the Delhi government, and I'm a little biased because it's headed, the chief ministers from IIT Kharagpur, but they are doing a lot of very interesting work that other governments are emulating today. And so have a look at, how governments are going to go in the future. Are they going to govern the same way? While the IAS might desperately want it to happen that way, it has to change. Technology is going to force this change, right? What it's also forcing is, normally, look at AIDS. AIDS has been around for 5-10 years, long time. I still don't have a vaccine for AIDS. Yet for COVID, they're talking of getting out a vaccine in a year. So what they've done is they've compressed all these processes, and there are lots of people who think that they're not doing it right and they're doing it too early and they shouldn't be doing it. But what choice do they have, right? Look at the different vaccines in COVID. Look at the different ones. There are the traditional ones, then there are the genetic ones that are coming out. And look at what genetics and this whole biotechnology is going to do to the healthcare industry. Just think of what is going to happen. I mean, I wish I was your age. It would be a very interesting place to reflect. Fortunately, the IT industry was at that stage, as Bikram mentioned, when we were your age, a little older than you. That's going to happen to biotechnology when you get to about 2025. Or it's happening now, in fact. And then when you get to 30, it's going to happen to nanotechnology. So you're going to have to learn and relearn. In our case, people are becoming redundant at the age of 50 plus because technologies are coming. In your generation, if you don't catch up with technologies, you'll be redundant at the age of 30 because a new technology will come in and start ruling the world. So just remember, it is a very dynamic world you're going to be living in, and technology is going to change our life. Everything is going, some technology, excuse me, and IT fortunately is the core infrastructure on which these technologies are going. Whether you look at biotechnology or nano, IT is the base on which it's all happening. And so, everyone has to be, you have to know your IT, doesn't matter where you work.